We can now go live to our correspondent, Sara Firth. Sara, great to have you on the show. We just saw there, very tearful, Mark Carney, the nation mourns with you, an emotional update from the country's Prime Minister. What more do we know about the shooting? And what are police saying about the number of dead and injured?
Yes, Leanne, a very visibly emotional Prime Minister Mark Carney there speaking about what Canada is now confronting. It's being described as one of the worst mass shootings in the country's history. And just to give viewers a little bit of context, this area of British Columbia is quite a remote region in the foot of the Rocky Mountains. It's got a population, it's estimated around 2,400 people. So this is really personal. We've heard from the authorities on the ground. We've heard from the local mayor saying, look, I don't call them residents, I call these people family. The mayor also saying, I will likely know most of those victims. Leanne, at this point, we're told by authorities there are 10 bodies that have been recovered, 7 at the school, including the shooter. You had 1 person dying on the way to the hospital, and you also had 2 victims recovered at a local residence that it's believed at this point to be connected to the shooting. We've had an update on the ground from the region's premier. We've also heard from the head of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police about the ongoing investigation. I'll just tell you what he said, because this is the latest update on where things stand with the investigation. The head of the police saying, we believe we have been able to identify the shooter, but for reasons of privacy, we are not releasing information at this point. We're not in a place now to be able to understand why or what motivated this tragedy, but the investigation right now will be focusing on how exactly this came about, and they will, of course, be looking for a motive in this very tragic shooting that's taken place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've just heard an update there about the suspected shooter from authorities, Sarah, and we could probably wait to find out what happened. But the shooter was found dead inside the school from an apparent self-inflicted injury. What else have police had to say?
Yes, so we know that in the initial response from the police, which we've been told by authorities was very, very rapid, that they were at the scene within around 2 minutes. An initial police report described the suspected shooter as being a female in a dress with brown hair. Now, authorities have been questioned, but they haven't really elaborated at this point beyond that update from the head of the police. They're saying that, yes, they do think they know the identity now of the suspected shooter. They're not releasing that information yet. Families over the course of the hours in the wake of this shooting, waiting desperately for updates and information as police identify those victims of the shooting. We heard from one of the local pastors who's come out and described what that atmosphere was like, Leanne, in the area where families were waiting. Just absolutely devastating for a small community. Look, Canada as a country is not used to these type of incidents. It's very, very rare that you get a mass shooting of this type. Their gun laws are very, very tight in comparison to here in the United States, where tragically those types of shootings are much more of a common event. So you've got those families and that community, that small community of some 2,400 people just absolutely reeling. The pastor saying, walking through the corridors of that school will never be the same again. We've seen the video emerging of people coming out of that school, many of them with their hands up, many of them students. We've heard from authorities that there is going to be mental health provision on hand for all of that community affected. And really, yet the community, the country in Canada, reeling at the moment, and the international community, of course, sending condolences for this tragic incident that's hit the country.
And Sarah, as you talk to us, we know that it's such a tragic incident. As you say, Canada is not used to mass shootings, and there's been this outpouring of condolences from world leaders. What have they been saying?
Yes, you've heard from the likes of Keir Starmer in the UK. You've heard from French President Emmanuel Macron. Around the world, the leaders are expressing their condolences and solidarity with Canada right now as they try and grapple with the scale of this tragedy. As we said, at this point, it's 10 bodies that police saying that they've recovered, 9 victims. One of those bodies thought to be the suspected shooter. Everyone pledging to help in any way that they can, because right now the focus is very much on the support for those families that will have been affected by this tragedy. You heard Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney there. He was saying, look, parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, they will be waking up to the reality of this in Tumbler Ridge right now. This very, very small community in British Columbia, in a country that is just not used to mass shooting incidents of this kind. The last, Leanne, was back in 2020 in Nova Scotia. And at that point, you then had the country tighten their gun laws even further. So there's going to be a lot of soul searching going on in the days and weeks to come about whether potentially they could go even further, whether or not this tragedy could have been prevented. But as of right now, you've got the families, a community there in Tumbler Ridge grieving, a huge tragedy, at least 25 injured in the hospital right now. We'll be waiting for updates on their condition, and police right now are on the ground investigating, trying to find out exactly what motivated such a horrific attack.
Sara Firth, thank you so much for joining us.